Welcome back to another Giant Slayer TFT Top 5 Meta Compositions video. Our analysts will be going through each of these top builds for the current patch of 10.6. This is the first top 5 list we've seen for set 3, so keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of shifts in the meta as everyone continues to learn the new set. As always, this list is not in order of strength as they're all viable in the right circumstances. But before we begin, please don't forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting news to come, so be sure to also follow our Giant Slayer TFT social media pages. Let's get right back into the video, and to start off the list, we're diving into the number 5 build, Rebels. Rebels are dominating the ladder right now, with most high elo lobbies having multiple players going for the composition. It's quickly becoming a staple in the meta by utilizing the insane shielding the 6 Rebel trait can give, while the legendary champions hard carry the fight. The core champions of this build are, of course, the Rebels, but in particular, you're going to want Ziggs, Malphite, Yasuo, Master Yi, Sona, and Aurelion Sol. Jinx is also a good substitute if you get a lot of attack damage items, in which case you take out the Malphite to play her instead. Besides the Rebel units, the other important champion to pick up is Gangplank, as he synergizes with Ziggs to get Demolitionist. With the shields and extra damage provided to Aurelion Sol, the sheer amount of AoE damage that Gangplank can do makes for a great combo. Gangplank will use his ultimate to weaken the enemy champions, while Aurelion and the other Rebels clean up the fight. Misfortune is also a great addition to this build at level 8, as she provides even more AoE. Items to look for in this build are Seraphs, Deathcap, and Morellonomicon for Aurelion Sol. Give these items to any champion prior to fighting Aurelion, though Ziggs is a great choice. Just make sure you keep an extra Ziggs around to replace the one you need to sell. Gangplank really only needs Guardian Angel, though if you find a spatula, you can turn Gangplank into a Rebel. Misfortune works best with the Seraphs, and as mentioned above, if you have a lot of attack damage items like Giant Slayer, Deathblade, and Red Buff, you can slap those onto the Jinx. This composition needs a quick 8, so rush there as quickly as you can. Early game pickup Rebel champions, especially Ziggs and Malphite, as they can do well in carrying you early on. Try to maintain either a win or a loss streak to maximize gold, and look to level to 8 on round 4-3. After that, you can slow roll if you're healthy, but keep in mind the 5-cost champions are likely to be heavily contested, so try to roll before other players. And for the last tip of this build, surround your Aurelion Sol with the other Rebel units to give the maximum amount of shields and damage. Alright, let's move on to our number 4 build, Cybernetics. This is another 6-piece trait that comes online in the late game. The core champions are all of the Cybernetics, with Kale and Misfortune being the recommended additions at level 8. Your composition will then be 6 Cybernetics, 3 Blade Master, 2 Valkyrie, and 2 Blaster. Echo and Kale are the primary carries late game, though Aurelia can do well if you prioritize giving her a lot of items. At level 9, look to play Thresh, as that will give you Mana Reaver for Aurelia, and you can put in additional champions from your bench. Because of how the trait functions, it's best to spread your items out amongst the Cybernetics. It's okay to not give Leona or Fiora any items, though Fiora works quite well with the Zeeks. Red Buff or Luden's Echo are fantastic items for Lucian, and Seraphs enables Aurelia to really pop off. A versatile item for this build is Thieves' Gloves, as you can give it to multiple champions, including Vi and Echo. If you have a lot of rods, it's good to stack AP items on Echo, so he'll do a ton of damage during his ultimate. As Kale is one of the potential carries, it's best to stack her with attack speed and on-hit healing items, so Rageblade and Gunblade are 2 of the best items along with RFC. Much like Rebels, this build needs level 8, but it's even more dependent on finding a 5-cost champion, as you must have Echo to hit 6 Cybernetic. That means your goal is to fast 8 at round 4-3 and then start hunting for Echo. It's also a fairly costly build late game, with Aurelia and Kale both being 4-cost champions. One of the great things about this build is that it can win streak super hard early if you're able to get 3 Cybernetic with either a Red Buff or a Ludens on Lucian. Time to dive in to the number 3 composition, Brawler Blaster. For anyone familiar with the first set, this build is going to bring back a lot of fond memories, as it's very similar to the old school build of Jinx Brawler. Core champions of this build are going to be all the Brawlers, Vi, Cho'Gath, Blitzcrank, and Malphite. For the Blasters, you're going to want to have your primary carry be Jinx, with Lucian, Ezreal, and Misfortune as the backup Blasters. It is viable to replace Lucian with Graves late game if you're going against a lot of auto attack heavy builds, as his ultimate ultimate is a strong counter to them. Items of this build are again very reminiscent of the old build, as Giant Slayer is making a return in set 3 after being buffed. Give that item to Jinx alongside other physical damage items such as Deathblade and Infinity Edge. Guardian Angel, Quicksilver, and Trap Claw are all fantastic defensive items on Jinx. Red buff is a must for blasters and works the best on Lucian, though it can be given to Jinx as well. The only other items to worry about are to try to grab a Seraph's or Misfortune, and Zephyr makes Blitzcrank a huge threat against enemy carries. While the full build does require level 8, it's not necessary to fast rush there. Try to pick up the champions as you go through the game, but you can roll on level 7 to find a few of the more expensive champions like Jinx, Cho'Gath, Ezreal, and Vi. Keep in mind that this build is fairly popular on top of the fact that Jinx is often grabbed by Rebel players, so scout around to see how contested she is. The last thing to consider for this build is to try to position your Jinx in the safest spot near your Blitzcrank so that when he pulls a champion, she will turn to kill it. This will help you in getting her ultimate off quicker. Try to keep your Vi on the same side of your Blitzcrank to prevent her from ulting onto the target and knocking your Jinx into a bad position. Let's continue down the list with our number 2 composition, MECH Infiltrator. This build utilizes the unique aspect of the Super Mech as it uses the traits of all of the Mech Pilot champions, meaning when you have 4 Infiltrators, the Super Mech is also benefiting from the increased attack speed. What's nice about this build is how easy it is to make, as the full build only needs 6 champions. Those champions are Shaco, Kai'Sa, Fizz, and either Kha'Zix or Echo for the Infiltrators, with Rumble and Annie to complete the mech. Later levels are flexible, but adding in Mystic or Dark Star can both be strong choices. The Super Mech will use random items from the Mech Pilots, so try not to have more than 3 total on them. Defensive items work best on the mech, such as Warmog's Bramble Vest, Guardian Angel, and Dragon's Claw. Give those to either Rumble or Annie, though Guardian Angel should go on Fizz. Shaco is the primary carry of this build and uses physical damage items extremely well, so stack him with Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, and a good defensive item like Guardian Angel. Outside of those items, you really don't need to worry about itemizing anyone else, though Thieves' Gloves is great for Kai'Sa and Echo. For playing this build, you will want to rush to level 6 as quickly as you can to get 4 Infiltrator and 3 Mech Pilots in. From there, you can slow roll your gold, meaning you want to hit 50 gold and roll the excess amount that you have. Your goal will be to find Shaco 3, Annie 3, and Rumble 3. Shaco 3 is especially important as he becomes an absolute beast when 3-starred, so be diligent in scouting to check and see if he's contested, as that will make 3-starring him much harder. Time to round out the end of our list with our number 1 build, Star Guardian Sorcerer. It's a great composition that does rely on hitting 3-star champions, but when you do, it has great late game potential. It can have a rough early game if you're not finding the champions or have a weaker board, and it's fairly item dependent, so don't plan on running this build every game. Core champions of this build will be all 6 Star Guardians: Neeko, Syndra, Soraka, Ahri, Zoe, and Poppy. Lux will be your 7th champion to give you a total of 6 Star Guardians and 4 Sorcerer. Generally, this build will stay at level 7 for the majority of the game, but if you do level to 8, you can put in Mystic or Protector. In the case that you find either a Star Guardian Spatula or a Force of Nature, you can play 6 Guardian, 6 Sorcerer at level 8. As mentioned, this build does require specific items, so you make sure you're going to grab either a Rod, Tear, or Sword from the beginning carousel. Rod is the best as it does get made into several important items, though the most crucial item is Guardian Angel for Neeko. Ionic Spark is the other must-have for her, as the magic resist reduction it has will benefit her ultimate greatly, as well as your other champions. Syndra is usually the main carry of the build and does well with Seraphs and Deathcap. If possible, look to use a double Seraphs on her and she will turn into an absolute machine gun with her ultimate. Ahri can also be played as the main carry, but she uses the same items as Syndra. Outside of those items, you can look to grab a ZZ Rot portal for Neeko or Poppy, since this build tends to lack frontline and the Void Spawn can provide an extra body to soak up damage. Early and mid game, you're going to want to try to do 2 things. Pick up any Star Guardians you find and try to get to 50 gold economy on level 7 as quickly as you can. It's likely you won't be able to do that until around Wolves, but the quicker you can get to level 7 with 50 gold, the better. Maintaining a win streak can be really beneficial for this build as well. Once you're on 50 gold at level 7, it's time to roll. First, you're going to look to fill out your composition if you haven't already by getting all of the core champions in. After that, you want to find a Neeko 3 and either Ahri 3 or Syndra 3. Neeko 3 3 is essential for this build to do well in the late game, and either carry champion being 3-starred is necessary as well. Alright folks, that is it for our top 5 meta compositions for the new set, but those aren't the only builds floating around out there. As it's a completely new set, there's a ton of options to explore, and while we can't go into every single one of them, we can talk about a few of our honorable mentions. Our first honorable mention is Vanguard. Vanguard, or Vanguard Carry, makes use of the trait's increased armor by having hard to kill champions like Jace and Mordekaiser. It's another build that requires slow rolling, and it's important to find either Mordekaiser 3 or Jace 3. It's also fairly item dependent, as you want Guardian Angel, Morellonomicon, and Ionic for Mordekaiser, and Gunblade for Jace. Another strong item choice is turning Jace into an infiltrator with a spatula, as this gives the build access to the enemy backline. Outside of the 4 Vanguard champions, which will be Jace, Mordekaiser, Wukong, and either Leona or Poppy, you can pair this build with 4 Mystic at level 8. The next honorable mention comp is Protector Infiltrator. It expands on the same concept as Mech Infiltrator, as it uses a defensive front line while letting the infiltrators destroy the backline. Kai'Sa is the primary carry in this build, and you will want to roll to 3-star her with Xin Zhao and Rakan. After you get them 3-starred, you'll finish out the build by playing 4 Protector, 4 Infiltrator at level 8. Kai'Sa works best with AP items like Jeweled Gauntlet, Death Cap, and Seraphs. Defensive items can be given to either Xin Zhao or Rakan, so Bramble Vest, Warmog's Guardian Angel, or Dragon's Claw. And that is going to be it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed the new set, and hopefully these builds will help you climb in ranked. Are there any builds that you've been playing that you want to share? Do so in the comment section below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next Giant Slayer TFT video.